rising global temperatures are having a profound impact on the Earth's climate. This is affecting the food we grow, especially in the developing world. As part of Science Foundation Ireland's AI for Societal Good Challenge, a project called TAPAS, based in NUI Galway, is combining artificial intelligence and satellite imagery to measure how agriculture is adapting to climate stress. So Aaron, in a nutshell, what is the TAPAS project?
The TAPAS project is a machine. It's built around artificial intelligence and big data. It's built around archives, petabytes of data that have been taken by Earth observation satellites for the last 20 years. The TAPAS project is a utility that allows NGOs, it allows citizens, it allows farmers, it allows researchers to track properly for the first time the effect that changes in our climate are having in the agri-food sector. Agriculture is the bedrock of human civilization. Agriculture is the one aspect of our biosphere that is so critically affected by climate change, and nobody knows really how to properly measure it. And we believe that we can do that. And because we're using Earth orbiting satellites, we're getting an unambiguous measurement of what's happening to the biosphere. Everybody else who is doing incredibly important work in socioeconomic development, in survey work, in studying supply chains and all the rest of it, that's fantastic, but nobody's really had a way to reference frame everything. And what we're doing through TAPAS is we're going to use this Earth observation data and techniques in artificial intelligence to build a means to actually measure things and also to sort of anchor all of these different interest groups in trying to get a sense of what is climate change doing to the biosphere, what is climate change doing to the agri-food sector. And not only are we unifying it, but we're building it around a map. So you can actually, just like you do with Google Maps, you can put a pin on a part of the world and you can say, what is the climate change temperature there? I mean, I don't mean temperature in terms of heat, I mean the actual take its temperature and have fundamentally almost a dollar bill estimate of what's the impact of the climate change at that particular point over a certain time scale.
So you say we're not measuring, and that seems like such a basic thing, like you have to measure in order to know what to do and where to do it.
I think the reason for that is that a lot of work has been gone into measuring things like carbon dioxide. A lot of work has gone into measuring things like change in temperature, change in weather patterns and so on. Those are things that you can measure and you can make statements about. The thing about this is that we're talking about something that's slow and gradual, and I would almost say insidious. And whilst we always had the satellite data available to us, no one has ever really been in a position to try to integrate everything together, right? To capture all of the subtle, non-linear kind of effects that are associated with growing cycles and so on and so forth, until the development of these new AI technologies, particularly these ideas behind deep learning. And so by using these very complex, very, very efficient, very powerful artificial intelligence techniques, we can basically sort of wrap our arms around what was up to now a very complicated problem to sort of use traditional methods, okay? The second thing is we have the computing resources to actually do it. We can actually analyze colossally large data sets.
By processing millions of pieces of satellite data, the TAPAS algorithm can track how climate change is affecting all the crops on the planet. To better understand how adaptation works, I met Professor Charles Spillane, who is part of the team.
So basically where we're standing right now, you can grow certain types of crops and different types of varieties, or you could have particular types of animals growing in this region. But in 20 years' time, will you be able to grow the same crops or the same animals? And adaptation really is about putting in place measures now that will allow you to produce things in the future at any location. So climate change is going to change not only the temperature of the planet, but it's also going to change our weather patterns and also what you can grow in different regions. So our whole agricultural systems will be impacted all around the planet, and so some places may get better. It may be possible to grow wheat where it wasn't possible to grow wheat before. It may no longer be possible to raise animals where you could raise animals before. And so on a global level, there's interventions that need to be made that are site-specific to adapt the agricultural systems in those locations to the future. And those kind of investments are being made. Irrigation systems would be an example, new crop varieties and so forth. But it's important to be able to measure those and see, are they actually delivering the adaptation that is expected of them, because right now there is no means to measure them. And TAPAS would solve that at all locations on the planet.
Charlie, am I right in thinking we have this huge amount of data that's gathered by the satellites, and the TAPAS project is finding ways to predict what's going to happen if we intervene and if we don't intervene?
Absolutely. You've got this huge amount of data that we can use to measure climate change adaptation, and the AI component can allow us to do that more accurately than if we didn't have AI. We're simply measuring what happened in the past, what we expect to happen in the future in the absence or presence of the climate adaptation intervention, and the AI makes that a much more accurate measurement. And that measurement is really important to decide which types of interventions are working better than others. And governments need to know where to invest their money. Banks and investment banks need to know where to invest their money. Large companies need to know where to invest their money in terms of their supply chains to make them more resilient. So TAPAS can help all of those different types of stakeholders to make much more wise investments in the best adaptation investments that will make agriculture systems more resilient at multiple myriad locations around the planet.
The TAPAS team are working on scaling their technology so it can be used across the world. This means we will be able to predict what adaptations farmers will need to make in order to grow their crops as normal.
Our particular focus is going to be on those parts of the world which are really bearing the brunt of climate change. And those are going to be countries and communities in the developing world whose livelihoods are being strongly impacted by the effect of climate change. People who just want to basically figure out a way to ensure that they don't go hungry and that their families can stay together, their communities can stay together.
There's about 2 billion people whose livelihoods around the world rely on agricultural systems. And so we're working with a global partnership. We have partners called the Climate Change Agriculture and Food Security Programme. Their headquarters are in Colombia. They have multiple climate smart intervention, adaptation type activities around the planet. We've been working with them as a strategic research partner for many years now. So this project is connected into an impact pathway that ultimately can reach billions of people.
This project is fundamentally about people's lives. If we can use this technology that we're developing to say, in order to make your community resilient to this background signal that we can see that's associated with real climate stress to the crops that they're developing, if you implement this type of irrigation scheme at this particular dollar value, it will have this particular benefit. That's fantastic for them because they know they'll be able to do something and they'll know there's going to be this outcome. It's fantastic for the development agencies because they can actually plan these things. And it's fantastic for people trying to contribute back towards the Paris Agreement. All the countries, all the signatories of the Paris Agreement are obliged to quantify, if you like, the impact climate change is having and the impact the remediations that they're implementing are having. Nobody knows how to do that. I think it's the key problem of our generation. I fundamentally think, and I think it's becoming generally accepted, that trying to in some way deal with this climate change emergency is the key pressing problem of our species and civilization.